Hello and welcome to The United Stand. As we approach the 60th anniversary of the Munich tragedy, I think one of the things that many fans may not understand or know, and one of the things we really wanted to discuss on The United Stand as we work through this massive and sad occasion for the club, is how good were the Busby Babes? Were they as good as everybody says? Where do they rank in relation to the great Manchester United sides and the great sides of world football? And also an interesting question that's very hard to answer, but you can sort of give some context to, which would have changed drastically the football landscape. If that tragedy hadn't happened, what would that have meant for Manchester United, for England, and the general world football landscape in general? So, speaking about the Busby Babes, I think it's really important to remember that just before the terrible events of the 6th that happened in Munich, when Manchester United were flying back from their game in the Champions League, European Cup, as it was then, against Red Star Belgrade, they played Arsenal a few days previous to that and were 4 points. I think it was 4 points behind Wolverhampton Wanderers in their chase for the third league title in a row for Manchester United. They'd won the previous two, and they were only 4 points off Wolverhampton Wanderers before that fateful day in Munich. So 3 league titles were very much in their grasp in a row. This was a fantastic Manchester United side. It was brimming with youth talent. I think the average age at that time was 22 years of age. And what Sir Matt Busby had done, he'd basically rewritten the rule book around football. And this was why, as I was saying on the show last night on the United Stand, the reason I support Manchester United is because my granddad supported Manchester United. And the reason he supported Manchester United, he told me, was because that what Sir Matt Busby and Manchester United did was unique. In the years before that, let's not forget, February the 6th, 1958 was and is the anniversary of the horrific and terrible tragedy that rocked not only Manchester United's world but football in general, which I'll speak to in a moment. But they'd already won 2 titles previous to that, and it wasn't like this new team that was filled with youth and then three players, Duncan Edwards, Eddie Coleman and David Pegg, who died as part of that tragedy in their early 20s. But in the season before and the season before that, all of them played over 30 games for Manchester United and were intrinsically part of those title-winning sides. So these weren't kids who were just, could be great players, or this was their first season and they were getting their first taste of Manchester United first team football. This team had been built over the previous 2 years. They weren't potential. They were one of the best teams in the world, and that was what the country was falling in love with Manchester United. Duncan Edwards from Dudley, Sir Bobby Charlton from up north, players like Tommy Taylor brought in from Barnsley. This was an exciting, young, exuberant side that was in capturing the nation, and many, many, many people around the country started supporting Manchester United because of that, because it was something new, because it was something exciting in what was at that time the people's game, football, the people's game. The attendances you used to get in those days, obviously not all seater stadiums, it was the working man's game. And to say working man's, well, as we know in the 50s, then the demographics of life were very different. And I don't know how many women used to go and watch the game then, but it was certainly a working man's game. And the football Manchester United played and the youth they had really, really caught the imagination of the nation. So that when the tragedy did happen, it was the country was in mourning. The country was in mourning. I mean, I don't like to say it in modern terms, but not even in modern terms, if you think about the 99 side or the 08 side for Manchester United, if God forbid they'd gone down in a plane and a number of their players had died, then imagine what impact that would have had in the modern day or on the modern fan. And this happened in 1958 and rocked the world of everybody. And no, I think that's a frustration that I have, that maybe some of the people have, and it's something that my granddad always used to drill into me, was that look, the tragedy is a tragedy, but a plane can go down tomorrow, it can go down in a year's time, and it's a tragedy because it doesn't need to be a football team on it. It could be a passenger flight going anywhere, and people people die in it, and that's a tragedy. The Busby Babes and what Sir Matt Busby built and the Manchester United side should not be sympathised or held up higher because they died in a plane crash. That's an easy sort of trap to fall into. The reality is that football side was the best side in England, established, and arguably the best side in the world, and certainly would have gone on to that. Many people feel they would have gone on to that because if you look at the Real Madrid team that won 5 European Cups in a row between 1955 and 1960, and the Busby Babes side basically ended in 58, right in the middle of that. Di Stefano, Puskas, they were like, I think one of them was 31 and one of them was certainly into their late 20s. So this United side in 58 with an average age of 22, even in 5 years' time when they were hitting their prime, 63, they still would have been in their prime. And teams didn't really break up like they do in the modern day. So good was this team that a couple of years prior to the tragedy, Sir Matt Busby had actually been offered the Real Madrid job and was basically told words to the effect that it's a paradise, and he said Manchester's my heaven. He knew what he was building there and he knew what he had, and the tragedy wiped out that team and it ended so young, but it did achieve things, big things already. So much so that many people felt that Manchester United were the favourites to win the European Cup in 58, and that would have been a couple of months after that. Real Madrid probably would have had something to say about it. It was a very, very good Real Madrid side, probably the best side in world football ever, certainly Real Madrid's best side. Real Madrid thought so highly of that Manchester United side that if it wasn't for Real Madrid, then Manchester United could have been in serious peril of going under after the tragedy. They wanted to award Manchester United that European Cup as a tribute to the Busby Babes. Why that didn't happen, there's differing stories, but actually some say that Manchester United didn't want it. They didn't want that sort of sympathy and statement, but Real Madrid certainly did offer it. They also offered a number of sort of friendlies in the time after that, where they did play their best players in it, and that brought in a lot of money for Manchester United. They also offered, and off the top of my head I forget I think it was Di Stefano, who was one of the best players in the world at that time. They did offer him for a loan in the following season. It didn't happen because of paperwork, and there was also talk of Puskas being offered as well, but United couldn't afford the wages. So it's sad in the modern day, really, that there are these relationships with clubs like Real Madrid where there is that sort of breakdown in the modern day, whether it's, I wouldn't sell him a virus or whatever, because you go back to something like that in 58 and the reaction from Real Madrid especially was just stunning and totally done without any agenda. Just the world was destroyed. The football world was destroyed by what happened to such an exciting and young and successful football team. 1958 was the year of the World Cup. It was felt that with Roger Byrne, Tommy Taylor and Duncan Edwards, Manchester United could have won that World Cup for England. They didn't. They did win it in 66. And many feel that Bobby Moore in those iconic pictures would have been very, very different if Duncan Edwards had lived, because many people felt that was Bobby Moore more or less operated in Duncan Edwards' position, and Duncan Edwards was massively inferior to Bobby Moore. In fact, Sir Bobby Charlton said it in an interview himself, that the only player he ever felt inferior to on a football pitch was Duncan Edwards. And Bobby Charlton played against Pele, Beckenbauer, he played with Best, and Bobby Charlton said that. And Sir Matt Busby himself said, over the years, many people have been touted as the new Duncan Edwards, including people like Brian Robson, but nobody will ever come close. Fantastic player, Duncan Edwards, and obviously ever since I've done the United stand, I've always had the little picture of him next to me, because he was the player that my granddad absolutely worshipped, the ground he walked on. And I've never seen him play. Obviously, I'm not that old, and I've certainly got no recollection of it. I cannot have it, but I have recollection throughout my whole life of a player that you just heard the name of. And Manchester, just going very back quickly as well, for those younger fans who are learning about this story about Manchester United, and it's an important story. And as I said, I was a long way after the Busby Babes in the 68 side, so I didn't see it, I didn't witness it, but I feel I know it, and I feel I know it because it was passed on to me by my granddad, like I said. And it's never too late to learn the story of Manchester United, and the information's out there, and that's part of the reason we're doing this video today, so that you as young fans can educate yourself and learn about this amazing story, Manchester United, and then spread it on through generations ahead, because it will never be forgotten. This is what Manchester United is all about. And what would we have achieved if the Munich tragedy hadn't happened? Well, I think Manchester United would have dominated English football for certainly the next 6 or 7 years. If you think about the likes of Duncan Edwards was 21 when he died. I think Coleman was 21. I think David Pegg was 22. Roger Byrne 28. Tommy Taylor 26. I mean, just talking about Tommy Taylor for a minute. I mean, he's always a player. Duncan Edwards is the one that I obviously always speak about the most, because that's, you know, a lot of people do. I think he was the star of the team. But Tommy Taylor is a player that really, like many of them, you know, Coleman and Pegg were great attacking young players. Roger Byrne, I think, was the understudy for Billy Wright as England captain and was a great leader of the team. But Tommy Taylor, and I don't want to take anything away from any players that died in the Munich tragedy, and some people's careers died. You know, some players' careers died. They were badly injured and they never really were the same again after that, which is an important thing about Duncan Edwards, because Duncan Edwards didn't die in the plane crash. He died a couple of weeks later from his injuries. And a lot of people feel that, you know, it was just bad luck, and he fought it, and ultimately he couldn't beat it. But with modern medicine, or even medicine a few years after that, he could have survived. It was touch and go the whole way. But the one thing that does stand out about the Duncan Edwards thing, and it always upsets me, is the fact that I think even in the couple of weeks that he did survive, that it was abundantly clear that if he had lived, he never would have played football at the highest level again. The injuries he sustained in the plane crash would have ended his career at 21. So, you know, it killed that team. It killed the team in more ways than one. And but Tommy Taylor, I must just say this about Tommy Taylor, because you talk about the great Manchester United strikers and the Busby Babes. Duncan Edwards is always the player that sort of symbolises the Busby Babes, but there were so many good players in it. And Tommy Taylor, in relation to Manchester United strikers, he scored 16 goals in 19 games for England, and he scored 113 goals. Let me get this right. I mustn't get it wrong. I think it's 113 goals in 166 games. I did write it down. 112 goals in 166 games, which is mass. You know, and he was 26 when he died. So he probably would have stayed at Manchester United for another 3 years. So I think he would have smashed the goal record. This was an absolutely relentless goal scorer for both England and Manchester United. And again, just another symbol of how good that side was. It wasn't the tragedy that defined it. It was the tragedy that ended it, but they'd already achieved so much. They were already a fantastic side. And definitely what I was going to get to is Manchester United's best ever side, because if 68 had the better individuals in Law, Charlton and Best, and 99 was the complete team, 58, which is where it ended, the Busby Babes, was a combination of both. Not only did it have the individual talents of the 68 side, it had the complete team of the 99 effect. A fantastic side, and you know, a team that defines Manchester United forever and ever and ever. And the landscape would have been different. Like I said, I think Manchester United would have gone on and won many titles. I think they certainly would have won at least 2 of those European Cups. They would have been head-to-head against Real Madrid in 58, a couple of months after the tragedy. And then you've got 59-60 when Real Madrid still won it. How would they have challenged them for them? Would they toppled them? Would they kept going head-to-head? And then into the early 60s, as they went into their prime, would they have dominated it then? So I think, what would have happened with George Best? Would George Best have got into the team? Probably. He was a world-class player. So Bobby Charlton was already part of it. Would they have signed Dennis Law? Maybe not. Maybe they wouldn't need to sign Dennis Law. Maybe they would. We'll never know. We'll never know. But it defines Manchester United in the way that we had the tragedy, and then 10 years later you have the resurrection, the realisation of a dream, the rebuilding of a team by Sir Matt Busby, but never forgetting where it ended and where the new journey began. And that's Manchester United, and that's the Busby Babes. Just a tragedy. And in many ways, look, I'd love to be able to do a video for you today with my granddad, because he is the reason I support Manchester United, and we could talk for hours and hours, and I'm sure it'd make a great video. But I think in some ways, well, no, in no ways. I wish I could do that video. I wish I could be still sat talking to him like I haven't for a number of years now. But Manchester United's about evolution. Manchester United's about the next challenge. It's about what Sir Matt Busby said. You know, you strive for perfection. If you can't hit that, you get excellence. And we always have to strive for that. It's never about second place. It's about first place. And as part of that evolution, players come and go, managers come and go, teams come and go. But the fans stay constant, and the club stay constant as well. So in many ways, me being the next generation and you being the next generation, carrying on this story like it happened yesterday, discussing the team like we knew it, because we do know it, because the information's out there, it's passed down through the generations. And as long as we, as the now, in the here and now, as the fans on this 60th anniversary, keep spreading that message, keep defining it, keep refining it, keep learning it, keep spreading it, then it never dies. They'll never die. They'll never die. They are Manchester United. They are what we are. And nobody will ever forget that. So get your comments in below. I know there's people who watch the United Stand who actually remember it. I mean, that's the wide range of the age of people who support United and get involved with this great community that we've built, and a worldwide community as well. We've got Flex over in Munich for the next couple of days. He'll be putting some videos up, speaking to fans out there, and I really do hope that we get a wide view and range of fans, because you've all got your opinions. It doesn't matter if you're 8 years old or 80 years old and you remember it. It touches everybody, and it touches everybody in a different way. And some people won't have known this story before watching the video, and some people will know it like the back of their hand. But like anything, it doesn't make you any less or more of a fan. In some ways, if you didn't know it, I'm sort of jealous of you that you are learning the story for the first time, because it is. Manchester United is the greatest story ever told, and every great story, unfortunately, has tragedy, resurrection, and evolution, and Manchester United has that. We have that tragic event, we have that rebuilding from nothing, we have that on the brink of sort of non-existence. There was talk of Manchester United winding up after 58, and as I said about Real Madrid, I must also add as well, it would be totally wrong of me not to mention Liverpool Football Club. The modern day rivalry with Real Madrid and Liverpool in a way is very sad when you listen and hear and know about what happened after 58, because Real Madrid rallied behind us, and there was that sort of, I suppose it was a time of that significant of that sort of time in the 50s that is not the same now 60 years later, whereby there isn't really that respect between teams. It's sort of a resentment, and it's not the same. Whereas I think when that happened in 58, Real Madrid Football Club were devastated that this team that they respected and respected because they were nearly as good as them, and maybe were as good as them, they rallied to Manchester United. But so did Liverpool Football Club. They offered players, and they supported as well. I think it was Bill Shankly who was fundamental behind that. So Liverpool certainly did it as well, and you look at that rivalry we have with Liverpool now. The word hate is mentioned. I think I've said it as well. It's not a real hate, is it? It's a rivalry hate, but actually, in our darkest hour, they rallied behind us as well, and that shouldn't be forgotten. A different time, yes, but I would like to think that if and God forbid it never happens again to any football club, and I know it happened in Brazil last year. But if it does happen again, then I would like to think Manchester United would rally behind them, and Manchester United fans would rally behind them as well, because football was the loser. Manchester United was the loser. Manchester United fans were the loser, but football was the loser as well, because those kids were breaking records, and they were a great side, and it was cut short too soon. But on the flip side, at least we had it. At least we have that memory. At least we have that success that they'd already had. A fantastic side, the Busby Babes, and I'll never tire of doing this every year, doing the videos, because it's a special time of year, and it's a sad time of year, and I think, you know, we all have it. We all have family members that are now no longer around, and maybe it's Christmas time, you go to the grave, and the birthday, and those are the times where you think about it, and the rest of the year you crack on with living because you're a long time dead. And when this comes round, and we never forget through the rest of the year, but it's nice and sad that every year we get this opportunity to focus on them, whether it's a couple of days or a bit longer this year because of the anniversary. So we'll never forget them, the Busby Babes, the kids that live on forever, and the legacy that lives on forever. And they are us, and we are them as Manchester United fans. Thanks everyone for watching. Please do get commenting below whether you're new to this story or whether you've known it or witnessed it or you've got stories yourself. Get commenting below. Give us your thoughts. And thanks everyone for watching.